Hello everyone and welcome to my favorite video of the year, how to fill the ERAS application. If you don't know me, my name is Malki Assad, a plastic surgery resident in the US, and for the last 4 years throughout the Match Guy, we've helped hundreds of applicants match into residency in the US, including giving them advice on how to match into residency, helping them with their ERAS application, personal statement, interview preparation. And in this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to fill the ERAS application for Match 2026. And I'll also include tips from mistakes we've seen medical students make when filling the ERAS application. And from reviewing the hundreds of applications, we've seen some common mistakes medical students make, and I'm going to point that out here to you so you make sure to avoid them. Before we get started, make sure to take advantage of the free Match resources we have available for you. And these includes 20 plus excellent personal statement examples, a filled ERAS application template, samples for personal statement, samples for letters of interest, letters of intent, letters of recommendation, in addition to interview preparation resources. And you can get access to all these free resources by signing up on the link that I'll leave in the description of this video. And I also have a big surprise for you. The Match Guy this year for Match 2026 released the Residency Program Navigator fully for free for Match applicants. This is a list of different residency programs, characteristics of these programs, cutoffs for step 1, step 2, what kind of visa they require, years of graduation, number and percentage of IMGs in these programs. And again, you can get access to this fully for free by signing up on the link that I'll also leave in the description of this video. And I promise this is going to be the final announcement before we start the tutorial. If you need help with your residency application for Match 2026, make sure to check out the Match Guy website. Under services, you'll find match application packages, which will include help for everything you need for this match. And I'll also leave the link for that in the description of this video. And now let's get started. So we'll start with the personal information. In this section here, you need to fill your first name, last name, your gender, your email. Make sure that you put an email that you have access to. Make sure that you check the spam folder, junk folder, so you don't miss any emails from programs that might contact you by email. And then you have the birth date. To add this information, you need to click on Edit Account Information, and then you can click on Authorize the release of your birth date provided in your ERAS. Then you have basic information. If you have any previous last names, preferred names, the preferred phone number. Make sure again you have access to this phone number. Don't put a number in the US that you can't respond to, because programs might contact you on this phone number. If you'd like to add your pronouns, you can do that here. Let's move on to the address, current mailing address, and you can put that here. Make sure again you have access to this mailing address. Don't put an address that you don't have access to, because some programs might send you a mail to this address. And then it asks you another question, whether your permanent address is the same as your current mailing address. If it's the same, you click yes. If no, you can add the information here. So just remember, mailing address is the one that you receive mail to. The permanent address is where you live. If they're both the same, you click yes. Another important section of the ERAS application is the work authorization and whether you need visa or not. And that's one of the factors included in the Residency Program Navigator list of different residency programs I told you about that you can access fully for free by clicking on the link in the description of this video to see which programs sponsor J1, H1, or both, or neither. So you need to answer this question: are you currently authorized to work in the United States? So if the answer is yes, it's going to ask you what is your current work authorization, because this question assumes that you already have your own visa. Let's say you're a citizen, you have green card, so technically you don't need sponsorship from the program. So if you answer that yes, you're authorized to work, you need to tell them what kind of work authorization do you have. Are you a citizen or a green card holder? Do you have an EAD or any of these options here? Because again, if you answer yes, that assumes that you don't need visa sponsorship. So you have to have your own work authorization without needing sponsorship from the program. But if you answer no, it will ask you, will you need visa sponsorship through ECFMG or J1 or the teaching hospital H1B to complete the rest of your GME training? Because now you might not have work authorization to work in the US, but by the time of residency start, you might. Let's say you started the green card application and you know for sure by June of next year you will have a green card. If you won't need a visa sponsorship from the program, you will have your own visa sponsorship. You can click no, and you need to tell them again on which basis you'll be able to complete the rest of your GME training. Will you have a green card, citizenship, etc.? If you say yes, I need a visa sponsorship, you have to tell them whether you want H1, J1, or both. And this could be used as a filter by residency programs, because some programs do not sponsor H1B visa. Most programs actually sponsor the J1. So the main limitation is the H1B visa, because this costs more. Actually, we have multiple videos about that with an immigration lawyer, and I can put the links for these videos in the description of this video. And these videos talk about the differences between H1, J1, and which one you should consider. But to optimize your chances of matching or getting interviews, I recommend you choose both. And then when you get interviews, at that point you get picky. If you got like 20 plus interviews, maybe you pick only H1B programs versus J1. But at the time of application, I highly recommend you pick both to optimize your chances of getting more interviews. And then if you receive a lot of interviews, you can pick. And then it asks you where you reside. If you reside in the US or Canada, where exactly, so you select that. Then it asks you if you want to participate in the NRMP match. If you click yes, it tells you that the NRMP ID will be populated automatically beginning September 16. One very important point I want to highlight here for applicants, and it gets people confused, is the difference between the NRMP and the ERAS. The ERAS is the platform through which you submit your application to programs. The NRMP is the organization that runs the match process. So ERAS and NRMP are different organizations, and one is responsible for getting your application to programs and the other is responsible for you matching. So don't think by you submitting your ERAS application, you automatically register for the match. You have to do that separately, and you can do that on the NRMP website when the time comes. Usually it's mid-September, but what it's telling you here is that that will update here automatically when you do so. Last year, you have to add your NRMP ID, but now it just updates automatically. Then it asks you if you're applying as a couple, and you can answer yes, partner name, and the specialty. If no, you answer no. And I actually also have a video on my YouTube channel about the couples match, and we have a blog about that, and we can keep the link for those in the description of this video. You'll have a lot of links in the description of this video because the ERAS is the ultimate result of all the hard work you did, so there is a lot of things that go into it. Now, if you're participating in the urology match, you can add the AUA member number, because again, you might be participating in ERAS, but not necessarily in the NRMP match. And then you add your USMLE ID that you have access to through your USMLE reports. Click save, and let's go to the biographic information. This section starts with asking about the self-identification. It's telling you if you reside in the European Union, don't answer this question. Probably they have some limitation on that. And then it asks you how do you self-identify, and you can pick the category and the subcategory that applies to you, or you can just pick other. This is not a mandatory question, so you don't have to answer it. Now let's talk about language proficiency, and this has changed last year, the way they structure the language proficiency. And it asks you if you meet or exceed the advanced level of proficiency in English. And here you have the definition of that. One thing to keep in mind, if you say no, that means you're in the good or lower category. And you can see here, you have some difficulty communicating healthcare concepts. And that's, of course, a red flag, because if you can't communicate healthcare concepts, that's going to be challenging for you to be a resident in the US. So the expectation is for you to answer yes, but of course your English has to be in that level. So if it's not, make sure you improve your English. Then if you pick yes, you can add other languages other than English if they meet or exceed the good level of proficiency. So here are the different definitions of the level of language proficiency, and if you meet the good or more, you can add entry and add the languages that you're proficient in. Then we have the military information. If you're committed to fulfill US active duty service obligations / deferments, and if you have other service obligations, that's a question that could be better answered by a military person, which is not me. And now let's move on to the geographic preferences section, a very important section when it comes to the ERAS application. Why? Because the AAMC actually have done surveys of program directors, and it seems that the geographic preferences, if you pick a geographic area that aligns with the area of the program, that will have increased chance of you getting an interview. And the reason is some programs even filter by people who pick a geographic preference that aligns with their location. So that's why this is a golden opportunity you should not miss. I don't recommend personally to pick I don't have a division preference or to don't pick a preference, because some programs might be inviting applicants, or that factor might play an important role in them inviting applicants of the same geographic preference. So you have here the different regions, and you can see the different states inside that region. So you're allowed to pick up to 3, so make sure you pick 3. And here you can see the map with the different areas and what they're called and which state they include. Once you pick an area, you can describe why do you have preference for that area. So you might say you have family ties, or you've lived in that area and loved it, or whatever kind of connection you have to that area, and the more convincing it is, the better. Some people might not have any family ties, or they just don't have a preference. And in that case, I recommend, if you really don't have a preference at all for any of these geographic areas, I recommend you go by the ECFMG data. If you can look at this graph from the ECFMG or Intel about the J1 visa sponsorship by state, you can see that New York, Michigan, Texas, Pennsylvania are the states that have the highest number of J1 sponsored physicians. So that technically can translate into the states with the highest IMGs. Not exactly that number, but that's a good indicator of that. So if you really don't have a preference, pick the regions that have these states, because that, if you're an IMG, your chances of matching will be more in states that are more open to IMGs or have more spots for IMGs historically. And I'll leave the link for this graph in the description of this video. For US students, most of the time their geographic preference is mainly family ties or location preference rather than driven by IMG data. Setting preference also important, but not as important as the geographic preference. You have 3 main categories: rural, suburban, and urban, and then a combination of 2 here, combination of 2, and then no preference. And here, if you hover over the question mark, you can have a little bit of description of what that means. Urban means the central part of a city with high population. Rural is large amount of underdeveloped land, a few homes or buildings. And suburban is kind of in between, smaller urban area around the city. So if you are someone who loves to serve in rural communities, underdeveloped areas, you might want to pick rural, because programs that are rural will be more likely to accept you versus academic programs, big research funding, and big cities, you will be likely to pick urban. And also describe the setting preference or lack of preference. And our editors, as I mentioned, can help you edit these sections, help you decide on the geographic preference if you have questions about that, but mainly help you refine the reason why you want that specific geographic area or that setting preference. Then you can add your hometown, and you can pick up to 3 hometowns. And some programs, especially in smaller rural areas, they might want people who have a hometown that is similar to where they are, because maybe there is some relationship between people who lived in that area and end up wanting to match in that area because their family is there, or they just want to live there because this is their hometown. Let's move on to education, and we'll start with higher education. If you're an IMG, most likely you will answer none here, because this is mainly for those who did college and then went to medical school, while in most international systems, you go to med school directly where you fill the information here. But you might have some graduate degrees separate from your medical degree, and that falls here. So if you have a Master's of Science, Master's of Public Health, all that falls here. And for US applicants, your bachelor degree falls in here. So to add that, you click on Add Entry, you add the country, education type, field of study, and here you can see the degree. So if it's expected or earned, click yes, and you will see all the different types of the degrees. You can see here MPH, Masters of Public Health, Masters of Science, and many other degrees. Dates of attendance is when you started and when you ended studying for this degree or taking classes for that degree, and the degree month and year is when you got that degree, which could be a few months after your end date. For the education type, you have undergrad, grad, and other, and the field of study is what kind of field was that degree in, other than the actual name of the degree, but what kind of field was it in. Now let's move on to medical education, that everyone should have some information about that, hopefully. We'll start with the country of your medical school. So where did you go to medical school, the country, then the institution name. So let's say I went to Aleppo University Medical School. Then you would have the degree of your medical school, and you can pick the drop down list. It could be MBBS, it could be MD or DO, or any of the other ones here. You can also see the combined degrees. If you have a combined degree like MD PhD or MS MD, you can pick that here as well. Then you have 3 dates of education from to, and degree date. Some students confuse that because they're not sure what date to put in where. Generally, for dates of education, you put when you started this school, what date did you start taking classes for that school, and the end, the 2 here, is where you ended. So let's say your last class was on February 2024. So you put that as your last date, or the last exam you did for school. That also could be the end of your education. So the last exam or the last class, whichever is later. So that is the end of your medical education, whenever you finished all your classes and all your exams. The degree date is when you got your degree, because as you know, some schools have delays in when they issue that diploma, and it might be a month or 2 out, or it might be 3 or 4 months out. So the date in which you receive that diploma, and usually is the date on the diploma, you can put that as a degree date. Now let's move on to postgraduate training, and that is a section that actually changed in this ERAS application compared to last year. Why? Because last year, if you watch my video on how to fill the ERAS application for March 2025, you will see that this did not exist, accredited residency fellowship. They only had ACGME accredited residencies and fellowships here. And that's why I recommended at the time to put any residency you completed in your home country under the experiences as education/training. However, this year they changed the ERAS platform so that you can put your residency in your home country in this box here. So you can click on add entry, and you will see type of training, and you will see ACGME, ACGMEI, AOA, which is US kind of fellowships and residencies sponsored by the American Osteopathic Association. And then you will find this other accredited fellowship, other accredited residency. So if you pick, let's say ACGME, you'll pick the specialty, institution, program, ID, country, address, put your program director name, supervisor name, and the dates. If you pick other accredited residency, it's going to ask you for the accrediting body. Who is accrediting this residency? And you have to know that from your home country, what kind of accrediting body accredits your residency. And then you'll pick the specialty. Same thing here. Let's say anesthesiology. You'll mention the name of the institution and the program, accreditation ID if they have that, and then the address, program director name, the same supervisor, and dates. And I think this is a move in the right way. It's very confusing to have residency in your home country as an experience rather than in this postgraduate training. So that unifies everything, and programs can tell whether it's ACGME or not ACGME from the accreditation or the subcategory of the postgraduate training. So it's very easy to figure out whether this was ACGME or not. Another improvement they did in this year's ERAS for March 2026 is this academic/professionalism, interruption or extensions. Every year since we started helping applicants with the match process, and even before ERAS actually explained it very well, I told applicants, do not put that your education was interrupted if you came to the US and did a 2-month rotation. That is not an interruption or extension of your training. And I've seen many students pick the answer here as yes, that it was interrupted, although it was not. And that might be a red flag for some programs, or sometimes they might filter by that. So that's why I always recommend it, unless it's a serious professionalism issue or academic issue, don't put your education was interrupted. And last year they explained that. They made it very clear that if it's academic or professionalism, you can put yes. If it's health or disability or family issues, don't put that as an extension, especially if it was a short time period. This year they made it even better. They separated it. They made it very clear. So hopefully students don't make any mistakes when filling that section of the ERAS application. Now they make it very clear this section is not intended to solicit information about your health, disability, or family status. And they ask you very clearly, have you had an academic extensions, leave, gaps, or breaks in your education due to repeated or remediated coursework? So let's say you failed your anatomy multiple times and the school had to extend your medical school by a year or 6 months due to multiple failures or some serious problems in your academic performance. Another one is the professionalism. Have you had any professional extensions, leave gaps, or breaks in your education due to professionalism sanctions or any other adverse actions by your medical school or experience institution? So let's say you went in and hit a patient, and because of this serious professionalism problem, they extended your training, or they put you on leave, or they had to punish you somehow. So these are the kind of things that they look for from this question. Now let's move on to the honors and awards section, and we'll start with the Alpha Omega Alpha. If you remember, you can pick this one here. If it exists in your school, but due to timing issue, because sometimes the elections happen when you're senior year and you still did not know by the time. So due to timing issues, you don't know if you remember or not, or if you're going to be a member or not. You can pick this one. And if you don't have a chapter at your school, like most IMGs, they don't have that at their school, you can pick this one here. And I believe if you have it at your school and this does not apply to you, the second option, and you're just not a member, maybe you should consider keeping this blank. Next, we have the Gold Humanism Honor Society status. And if you don't have it at your school, like most IMGs, pick this one. If you're a member, pick this one. And as I said, if you have it at your school and you're not a member, I'll probably keep it blank. And then we will go to other honors and awards. That's a change they made last year. I think it's a great change because now you have kind of a section for each type of award and more explanation about that, because the mistake we found multiple students make is that they just mention the name of the awards without any description, without any context of what this means. And you can imagine somebody from another country has no idea what the award of the best student in my school means. Was it given because you were very nice to patients, or because of your academic achievements, or whatever? So the way that they have it now is you put the type of the award that you have, a grant, research, scholarship, honor society, service recognition. Then you can put the name of that award, the date it was received, and you can describe a little bit. You give some context to that so people know the value of this award. And I highly recommend that you describe the award and why you got it, so people really appreciate why you're a great candidate, because all these things have to reflect on you being a great resident, and hopefully you have a good reason you got that award, so people consider that even more. You have 100 characters, not 100 words. Another thing that some people confuse about the ERAS is that they write to us paragraphs and paragraphs and they send it to us, but you're only allowed 100 characters. The same for the geographic preferences, experiences. There is a set limit on how much you can write characters wise. And finally, professional memberships. You can add any current memberships in professional organizations, associations, or societies. And to add that, you click add entry and mention the organization name. So here you don't need much description about that because they don't have a box for that. You just need to add the organization name. And if you want to show how long you've been with this institution, you can consider adding the start month/year, and you can put until present, or you can just put the organization name. But here they're only asking for current memberships. So if it's past and you're not currently a member, you should not include that here. Now let's move on to where the money is of the ERAS application, which is the experiences. So if we have to pick the most important section of the ERAS CV and the whole ERAS application, in my opinion, it's the ERAS experiences. Because this is technically your CV. This is what you've done over the last so many years until you got here. And before, when we were editing CVs around 4 years ago, you could pick as many experiences as you like. And you can see that is burdensome to programs because some applicants sent us like 25 experiences, and they divide each rotation as an experience and each research publication as an experience. And they limited it now to 10 experiences. So you can only add up to 10 experiences. You don't have to add 10, but if you have so many, you can only add 10. And afterwards, you need to pick 3 most important experiences. They call it the most meaningful experiences, and we'll see what that means. I take my time explaining this section because, again, this is a very important section, and this is the section that you will talk about your experiences and accomplishment. And let's start by clicking add entry, and you will see here there are multiple boxes you need to fill. And we will start with the organization. So where did you do this experience? So I'm gonna just, to show you an example, especially for the most meaningful, I'm gonna add Mayo Clinic, and that's the place where I did research for a year. So I'm going to add the organization name, and you can add whatever organization you did this experience at. And then you'll have the experience type. You will see multiple options here. Education, training, self-explanatory. So if you had some kind of education or training in which you learned, not you tutored, you learned, that falls under here. But very important for IMGs, under this category falls your rotations, your electives, your sub-Is, your observerships, your externships. And as I said before in my previous video, you will see I also say a residency in your home country, but now the residency in your home country falls under education, postgraduate training. So any educational experience and the rotations for IMGs. Usually US students don't put rotations under this category because it's part of their medical school. Military service, self-explanatory. Other extracurricular activities / clubs. And for this, it has to be a meaningful extracurricular activity, not just a hobby. And you will see here, you can see it here now actually, there is a section for hobbies interests. So if this is just a hobby, don't add it as an experience, especially again, the space is limited. You only have up to 10. So you need to use it wisely. A professional organization, and this is different from the professional membership I just showed you. If you're just a member, belong to a society, you don't actively engage in that society and contribute to that society, I also don't recommend you fill that as a professional organization. But if you're someone who is very involved in the leadership of that organization, organizing meetings, organizing conferences for that organization, or you're the CEO or whatever big involvement in that professional organization, you can add that as an experience. And these are very important things to consider because each characteristic you can convey here through the experiences can translate into you being a good resident. Because if you're a good leader, that means you can function within a team and lead the group of residents and the other members of the medical team. If you're a team player, you will function well within the medical team. If you're a good teacher, you can teach students and residents. So you can see that almost each characteristics that you can convey through the experiences can translate into you being a resident. Then you have the research. And this is if you spent a good amount of time doing research or you have some type of research experience. This here, research talk about the experience itself rather than the publications and the presentations. And for me specifically, it's going to be a research experience at the Mayo Clinic, so I'm going to pick research. But I want to explain to you the rest of the experiences. Teaching / mentoring, self-explanatory. If you tutored or you taught somebody or you mentored somebody or a group of people, you can pick teaching / mentoring. If you did unpaid work, volunteering / service / advocacy, you can add that experience, and work is mainly paid work. So the main difference between these two is unpaid versus paid. And work could be in the medical field or could be not in the medical field. But again, you have to pick your experiences very wisely. Why? Because you might have worked at Uber and you might have a description to convince people that your experience at Uber have made you a better candidate for residency or not. And this is the thing, most of us have more than 10 experiences. And you have to pick the experiences that would portray you the best to residency programs. And that's where our advisors come in and help you with this process, not only to edit your ERAS application, edit your personal statement, but also help brainstorm with you which experiences of the so many you have would impress program directors the most. Because most of our advisors have sat on these committees where they talk about the residents and the selection process. They've edited so many ERAS applications and personal statements, so they know what people are looking for. All our editors, by the way, are physicians. They're not language editors. They're actually physicians who matched in residency or fellowship in the US. So it's not like you have someone who is unexperienced with the process giving you advice. The ERAS application editing we provide and the personal statement editing we provide and the interview prep and the advising, all the things included in the match packages are not just superficial advice and superficial editing. It's actually both editing and the content advising, which is honestly more important than the editing itself. So that's why I recommend you have someone who is experienced. Look at your ERAS application, look at everything in detail, and you will find that some people might have that. They have really good mentors who are willing to sit and spend like 3 and 4 hours, edit their ERAS application, their personal statement, give them advice. And sometimes you send it to them and they just change 2-3 words and you know that they did not spend enough time on your ERAS application. So if you're lucky to have these people, go for it. If not, we have phenomenal physician advisors, no AI, just actual human who is very experienced with the process, who can help you pick the experiences and also help you edit the description of the experience, this section here, which is the section that our advisors spend the most time on. And you should also be spending the majority of your time brainstorming the description of your experience, which explains the roles you did, the responsibilities you took, and in other words, what did you do? What kind of experiences you got out of this experience? What kind of skills you got out of this experience? Here you can add the position title. My title was research scholar. If you're currently working in this role, I'm not, but if you're currently working in this role, you can click this checkbox and it will make the end date not mandatory because you're currently working in it, and you just need to add the start date. Then the start date is just the month and the year. I'm gonna pick August 2018 to July 2019. The country is the United States. Then you can pick the state. The state was Minnesota, where Mayo Clinic is. The city is Rochester. So just show this. Postal code is not mandatory. Then you can put the participation frequency, and you have one time, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. And I can put some explanation of how frequent it has to be to become daily or weekly or monthly, etc. The setting, similar to the setting we talked about, the rural, suburban, urban, virtual, now they have that as an option. And then you have a combo of the rural, suburban, and suburban, urban. Then we have the primary focus and key characteristic. They are not mandatory sections to fill, but I highly recommend you do. And here, if you hover over the question mark, this one talks about the focus area that best describe the experience for you. When we see the options, you'll be able to understand more. So if, for example, you did research, was that research basic science? For me, it was clinical science. The other options, you have community involvement, customer service. So you kind of pick the focus of that experience and in which area was it. Then you have a key characteristic, which is the most important characteristic that you demonstrated or developed during the experience. So was it mainly communication, critical thinking, cultural humility and awareness, empathy, ingenuity and innovation, reliability? So for me, I would probably pick for the research, the critical thinking and problem solving. But if I develop devices or I found something fully new, the innovation is not wrong. As you can see, for these two, there is no right or wrong answer because multiple things might work. Is just what would you like to convey out of this experience? Would you like to show that the main thing you learn from this is the critical thinking and the problem solving, or the teamwork, or the leadership, or whatever characteristic you got out of it? And one thing to keep in mind when you're writing your description is that you have 750 characters. Again, characters, not words. And by the way, if you would like to see samples of how a full experience description looks like, how to describe the geographic preference, why did I pick this area, why did I pick this setting, we have a full completed ERAS application sample ready for you, fully for free. You can download it by signing up through the link I'll leave in the description below, and you will receive, in addition to the ERAS application sample, you will receive 20 plus personal statement examples. You will receive letters of interest samples, letters of intent, letters of recommendation, resources for your interview preparation. So make sure to sign up again through the link I'll leave in the description below so you can get these all delivered to your inbox. Now, after we added up to 10 experiences, we put the description, all the details associated with the experience, we need to go and pick our most meaningful experiences. And you can pick up to 3 most meaningful experiences. And the reason why we have this section is because if the program director or the person reviewing your application does not have time to go through your 10 experiences, they can have a look at the 3 most meaningful experiences to you and you think would convey the most about you. And that's another thing our advisors can help you with, is identifying these experiences that can help portray you as a very good candidate for the residency spot you're seeking. And to do that on the ERAS, you just check this box, most meaningful, next to the experience that you want to pick as the most meaningful. Once you click on that, you will get this box to describe why this experience is one of the 3 most meaningful ones. A common mistake we found when editing applicants' ERAS applications is they describe in this section what they did, which is already described in the description of the experience. So be very mindful here to not repeat what you did in the experience. And ERAS tells you clearly that they don't want that. It says here, this essay should not describe what you did in the experience or list a set of skills that you developed or demonstrated during the experience. Why? Because this is already should be in the description of your experience. So you don't need to repeat that here. But what you need to put here is why it was meaningful and how it influenced you. And they give you a recommendation to weave in the focus area and the key characteristics like the leadership or the problem solving we talked about. Weave it in the description here of why this experience was one of the most meaningful ones. And it's tricky because this line between what you did and why it was meaningful might be not very clear, and that's why we have this sample template of the ERAS application, so you can see a sample description of the experience and the sample description of why the experience was one of the most meaningful ones for you. One point for the description of the experience, I highly recommend you do them in a bullet point style. I don't think it's wrong to do it as a paragraph, but doing it in a bullet point style, especially if you have multiple things you want to talk about in the description of the experience, it makes it easy to read. But for the why it's the most meaningful, you can just put it as a paragraph. And as I said, you can see full sample of the ERAS application template on our website, and to get that you sign up through the link I'll leave in the description of this video. And here you have 300 characters to describe that, not 300 words, and you can do that for up to 3 experiences. Now let's talk about another important section of the ERAS application, which is the impactful experience. This section focuses on describing challenges or hardships that influence your journey to residency. Not everyone has to fill this section. It's not mandatory, and programs don't expect all applicants to complete that. They say that clearly here. Programs don't expect all applicants to complete this question because not everyone had hardships and challenges across their journey to residency. But if you have one, you can describe that here. The following examples can help you decide whether you should respond to the question and what kinds of experiences are appropriate to share on the ERAS application. And they even give you examples like if you were the first generation to graduate college, financial background like a low-income family, community setting, food scarcity, poverty, crime rate, educational experiences like limited educational opportunities, other general life circumstances like loss of a family member, serving as a caregiver while working or in school. So these are challenges that are different from the normal challenges you go through in your everyday life. So you might say, oh, I had challenges of studying for medical school. Medical school was hard. That's not a challenge because everyone has to go through this challenge. Medical school is challenging, but these are kind of additional challenges that you might have went through, and they give you examples of what kind of things fall under this category. This section historically was in the supplemental ERAS, and they put it in the main ERAS after they removed the supplemental ERAS. And I think it's a very important section, especially for people with difficult backgrounds, difficult challenges they had to overcome to get here, and it helps the program know a little bit more about them. And the key is in describing it. It's not only in saying, oh, I had this challenge. The key is in describing how did you overcome that challenge? How did that affect you? How did that make you a better person and possibly a better resident and a team player in the residency program? So it's very important you describe this section very clearly. You be smart about picking how to do that. And again, that's another thing our advisors can help you with if you need help with that. You have 750 characters, not 750 words. And afterwards, you have hobbies and interests. You can give some details about that. Don't just say basketball, tennis, table tennis, etc. Give some more insight or context to that. And this could be a nice icebreaker, especially during the interviews. If you play tennis and the person interviewing you is also plays tennis, that might be a nice thing to talk about. So just be mindful to not just add things, because if you say, I play tennis, and the person asks you a question or two just out of curiosity to learn more about you, and you had no idea about tennis, that looks really, really bad. So just be mindful about that. And this is always a general tip for interviews, is to know every single thing on every single line on your ERAS. Don't put things you're not comfortable talking about. If you have a lot of papers and you forget what these papers are about, and people might ask you about that, you have to make a choice. You either have to go and review all these papers and make sure you can have a conversation about them, or if you can't, or you forgot everything about that, you might consider taking it out, because we say everything on your CV is a fair game for the interview. So although this is an interview advice, but it ties very closely with what you can put on your ERAS, because people have access to that information, so they might ask you questions about that, and it looks really bad if they ask you something on your CV and you can't talk about that. Now let's go on to licenses and certifications. We have the state medical licenses. Please add an entry for any of your state medical licenses. You click add entry, you pick the state, license type, full, temporary, inactive, license number, expiration date. Most applicants won't have that. Then you have the additional questions. Are you able to carry out the responsibilities of a resident or a fellow? Hopefully the answer is yes. And these other questions, for the majority of applicants, the answer will be no. If you have any of these situations, click yes, and it will add a box to explain. Then you have the board certification. If you're board certified, click yes, you add the entry, and you add the certifying board and the certifications. Most applicants won't have that, so you answer no. Other certifications, if you have other medical or healthcare related certifications, they had a specific section in ERAS 2 years ago about the BLS and ACLS. But now you can just add it here. So you click yes, you click add entry, and then you can put the certification name, date received, and valid until. Then if you have a DEA number, which is mainly for opioid prescription, you can put that here. And now let's move on to the publication section. This is probably the section I get the most questions about because many are not familiar with how to fill these sections of ERAS, the different types of the publications. So I'm gonna explain that to you very clearly so you have zero doubts about that. I've done 3 years of research, 1 at the Mayo Clinic, 2 at MD Anderson, and I published multiple papers, mainly clinical research. So I have very good idea of how to navigate that section. And I also summarize my whole research experience through 3 courses. The research course, which teaches you how to do clinical research from the idea stage all the way until publication. We have another course on how to do statistical analysis, and the third course on how to do a systematic review. And I'll leave the links for all these courses in the description of this video. All these courses are 100% satisfaction guarantee, which means if you're not satisfied, we'll give you your money back, no questions asked. So to add the publication, start by clicking here, add entry, and you'll have a list of the publication types. We will have peer-reviewed journal articles / abstracts, and then the same other than published. Let's start with this one. It will ask you for the journal article / abstract title, which is the title of your paper. I'm gonna show you examples on how to fill that from my paper. So if you go here to this publication, I have the article title, this one here. I'm gonna copy paste it here. Then we're gonna go to the author list, and they have a specific way they want you to write that, which is last name, space, first initial, no space, middle initial, comma, and then the list of authors. They even give you an example of that. You can see Smith AB, Garcia MM, Klein J, and for my case, I have Assad M because I don't have an initial. So I'm gonna write that, and then I'm gonna put a comma. The second name we have on the paper here, Jesse Z U has a middle name, so it's gonna be like that, U J Z, and then we can put the list of the other authors. Publication name means the name of the journal you published in, and for my case it's this one here, Plastic Reconstructive Surgery. You can use the PubMed style, or you can use the full name of the journal. So I'm gonna put this one here, but if you wanna put the full name, it's called Plastic Reconstructive Surgery. Article URL, I think it's helpful to put the article URL if somebody wants to check it out. So from PubMed, you click on full text here, and you can just copy paste this link, and then you can post that here, just in case, again, somebody wanted to check it out. The PMID, you can find it somewhere here. You can see it here. We're gonna copy paste that. The volume, issue, and pages, the question I get asked about frequently. So you're gonna go here, and you're gonna find next to this line these numbers. We're gonna take all that and copy paste it, and I'm gonna show you. So we're gonna take this whole thing. Let's say I'm gonna paste it here. So you have the publication date is this one, October 2023. So we're gonna pick 2023 October. So that is over. We don't need the actual date. So now we're left with these numbers. The first one is the volume. The second one, this one here, is the issue number. And the final one, the final 2 numbers, and it's usually a range, are the pages, because you can imagine it's from this page to that page. And that's how you can add a publication. And this here is referring to fully published journal articles / abstracts. So one thing interesting about abstracts here, and I'm surprised they still keep that combined with the articles, is because if you're familiar with the structure of publishing, when you have a research project, you usually start by presenting it locally or nationally or internationally, and you count that as an oral or poster presentation based on where that presentation happened. But sometimes these conferences, they publish the abstracts of their presentations in a journal, and these abstracts get a number and an issue and a volume, and they get published. And the problem with that is that the effort taken to publish an abstract is much lower than a full text article. And by combining the two, it's hard for program directors to tell if this is an abstract or an article. There is actually a way sometimes, especially when it's in the supplement of the journal, but you can see that this article is a full text article, very big study, and it was in the supplement. So that's why I think ERAS should separate the two, but for now they're combined. So if you have a published abstract separately from the paper, the full text paper of your research project, these get added separately. And you click save here. And one thing to point out is that you don't add your abstract, which is the abstract of your paper, separately from your full text article if they're in the same paper. So you don't say, oh, my abstract is here and my paper is here, although they are in the same paper. But you add abstract separately when they're published separately, totally separate from the full text article, usually as a result of publishing the abstracts of that conference. That's why the mean number of abstracts / publications / presentations, a number provided by the NRMP for the average between these different specialties is not very accurate, because as you can see from one research project, I can usually get 1 or 2 presentations, and each presentation can be made multiple times locally and internationally and nationally, because you're presenting it in different places, so that counts. And sometimes some of these get published, so you get multiple abstracts of your paper in addition to the full text article. So from one research project, you're getting a much higher number of these combined publications, presentations, and abstracts. And I think these should be separated because they don't have the same value, the same effort. For somebody who published only 2 full text articles, it's not the same as somebody who did 3 presentations and 2 abstracts and 1 paper out of 1 single project. I'm explaining all that to you so you know how to put things in the right way. So that is for published. So now let's go to another category, which is other than published. So let's click on this one here, and you can fill it the same way: the title of the paper, the authors, the journal name, the article URL, the date. But then let's check this publication status and talk about the differences between them. We have submitted, which means when you submit the paper to the journal. Once you submit the paper to the journal, it either can be rejected immediately or it can go into the review process. The review process can be minor revisions, major revisions, and it can go into multiple rounds of revisions. And as long as it's in the review process, you can pick under review. Once it's accepted, you can pick accepted / impressed category. But as long as it's under review, even if it's minor revisions, you should pick under review. Once it's fully accepted or impressed, you can pick this category. The impress is the same as this online ahead of print you see on PubMed sometimes, and I'm gonna show you an article here that has that. So if you look here at this paper, you can see that it does not have a volume and an issue number. It just have e-pages on the journal electronically, but there is no volume and issue number. You can see only date and then these pages. You don't see the volume and issue number that I showed you for published articles. And you can see here next to it, online ahead of print. So that's why even if you pick accepted impress, you don't get prompted to add a volume and an issue number. And that's one of the differences between an online ahead of print paper and a published paper. There are papers that get published online only. Like this paper, for example, here, you will see that it's published online, but it has a volume here, an issue number, and pages electronically. That's why it has E. But this is not online ahead of print or impress. This is actually a fully published paper because it has the volume, issue, and the pages, even if these pages are electronically. But for papers like that, where it doesn't have a volume and issue number, just the pages, and it says online ahead of print, you should pick accepted impress. And not all accepted papers are published online ahead of print. And online ahead of print is that stage of the paper publication before it gets fully published. Sometimes they don't have enough pages in a certain volume or issue. Sometimes they want to do some grammar checks. So it's like, it's going to be published, but it's in this stage before that. And finally, preprint is when the authors put their paper publicly available online before it has undergone the peer review process and the formal publication in a journal. So it's technically a draft of your research article shared publicly, usually on a preprint server. And the goal of that is to disseminate research findings quickly. Because as you know, publishing a research article takes months and months of review process and the checking and the final publication and waiting in line until there is enough space in the journal issue to put that paper in. So some authors don't want to wait to disseminate that knowledge and delay people knowing about that, so they do it as a preprint. But they also submit it separately to go through the formal peer review process. But be mindful here that you might put a paper as a preprint, but it might not get published. So the preprint doesn't equate to the paper being accepted or in publication. Now let's go to another publication type, the peer-reviewed book chapter. Here you can put the name of the book, and here you can put the title of the chapter you contributed to, because most of the time you're not writing the whole book, you're writing a chapter in that book. Here you add the authors like we talked about. Here you write the editors of the book, the publisher of the book, the pages of the chapter you wrote or contributed to. If you have the link, you can add it here, the country and the year in which the book got published. Scientific monographs are a piece of work on a particular topic, but I don't see these very commonly among medical students and graduates, but if you have one, you can add it here. Poster and oral presentations, very important for medical students, so let's open that. You can put the title of your presentation here, the authors of the presentation, what is the name of the conference that you presented at. If there is a link for that, you can add that here, the country, city, presentation date, and the poster URL if you have that available. And similarly, oral presentations, you have the title of your presentation, authors, the name of the meeting or the conference, if there is a link to your presentation, the country, city, and presentation date. One question I get asked about when it comes to presentations, can I put presentations on my CV that I did not personally present, but I contributed to? And although there is no clear guidelines from the AMC regarding that, I think it's fair for you to add a presentation on your CV, and even though if you did not present, you still contributed to that. So to make things clear and not confuse people, put the author list in the right order. Usually the presenter is the first author, and you can also add an asterisk next to their name to indicate that they are the presenters. So just making things clear and there is no confusion for the programs that you're applying to. Even though the meeting was virtual, you can add the country as United States. And then we have 3 categories left. Peer-reviewed online publication. This is if you have an online publication that went through the peer review process. An example of that would be something like Up to Date. It's not actually a paper, it's an online publication, but it still went through a peer review process. So you can add the name of that here, the authors, the link, and the publication date. We have non-peer reviewed online publication, very similar boxes here, but it did not go through the peer review process. And an example of that would be a blog you wrote on some website and it did not go through peer review process, but it's still published online and you can put the information here. And finally, other articles. So if you have an article published that did not fit any of these categories, you can add it under other articles. They will ask you about the title, the author's publication name, which is the journal in which it got published or whatever medium this publication went on, and if you have the link for that and publication date. Again, this is one of the tricky sections in ERAS, so if you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out to us or put your questions in the comment below. And if you would like to learn more about research, which is very, very important, especially now with step 1 becoming pass-fail, there is more emphasis on other things like research. I highly recommend you check out our research courses. It will teach you how to do the research, very practical course, very interactive with samples and examples and research articles. The statistics course, which will teach you how to do statistical analysis. And again, it's not theory, it's fully practical course. You actually do statistical analysis for data sets we have on the course as part of the course. And finally, the systematic review, which will teach you how to do a systematic review and meta-analysis, again with examples and practical lessons. I'm not a fan of theoretical lectures without practical examples, and that's why I build these courses to show you how to practically do research. And you can get these courses separately or you can bundle them together, whatever works for you. Now let's go to the specialty questions. This is a new section in ERAS that got added this year, and they tell you here that these responses will only be sent to the programs in the corresponding specialty. So if you're applying to these specialties, answer these questions. If you're not applying to these specialties, neurosurgery, plastic, and anesthesiology, do not answer these questions. And if you decide to get your ERAS application edited with us, with the Match Guy, we're happy to edit these answers for you at no additional cost. So let's have a look at the anesthesiology questions, a time where you faced adversity and how you overcame it, and any lessons you learned from it, a situation in which you have made a different decision that might have led to a better outcome, and describe your ideal career as an attending. For neurosurgery, describe a time when you had to make a quick decision. What did you consider when making the decision? How did you consult or not, and why? Describe a specific situation where you received negative feedback about your performance. How did you adjust your behavior? What did you learn from the situation? And you can see that these questions are trying to identify situations that you face on a regular basis in residency. In residency, as a neurosurgeon, you will face situations in which you have to make quick decisions almost every day. You will have situations where you will receive negative feedback. Again, very commonly, that's everyone will receive some negative feedback so they can improve. That's how you improve. So they want to see how you react to these situations, and you need to be smart about answering these questions. And that's why we have physician advisors who can help you not only in the language, but in how would a neurosurgeon would like to see that question answered. Describe a specific situation when you worked was overwhelming. Welcome to neurosurgery. What specific actions did you take to manage your workload, and what was the outcome? Let's have a look at the plastic surgery questions. Describe a specific situation when a team you were on had to collaborate to achieve an outcome and there was a disagreement. How did you specifically contribute to the situation? As you know, in plastic surgery, we always work with other specialties. So it's very important to understand how would someone collaborate. If they disagree, how would they resolve that? A situation where you experience a setback, how did you overcome that challenge? That's similar to the anesthesiology question. Describe a time when you had to make an important decision quickly. What did you consider when making that decision? Again, very similar to the neurosurgery, because you will, as a surgery resident, sometimes you just have to make quick decisions and you have to make them right. And these programs are trying to learn a little bit more about you than just your experiences and publications. And as a bonus this year, we're going to answer these questions and add them to our ERAS application sample that you can get access to that fully for free by signing up through the link I will leave in the description below. In addition to the ERAS application sample, you will get 20 plus personal statement examples, LORs, letters of interest, letters of intent, interview prep resources. They will all be delivered to your inbox fully for free. And now, after you've filled all these sections of the ERAS CV, you have to go and click Certify and Submit. One thing to keep in mind is that once you certify and submit your ERAS CV, you won't be able to edit it, except the personal information section. So that's why it's key to understand the dates associated with submitting your ERAS. And for that, we're going to go to the AMC website, look at the ERAS 2026 residency timeline. It tells you here that you would be able to submit your ERAS application starting September 3rd, 2025. However, programs won't be able to review your ERAS application until September 24th. So if you submit on September 3rd or September 4th or September 20th or 21st, it doesn't matter. They all get stamped at the same time, which is September 24th, 2025. However, if you submit after this date, it will show as the date that you submitted in. But as long as you submit before September 24th, you should be good. So that's why there is no reason to submit too early, because if you wanted to add few experiences or add few publications, you won't be able to do that. So if everything is ready and you have all your experiences and publications, consider submitting a day before so you're not left until the last day in case there were some technical issues or some internet issues, but you don't need to submit too far ahead. So again, once you certify and submit, you won't be able to add publications, experiences. The only section you can change is the personal information. And another thing that people ask about, you can't do multiple CVs for each application, because some applicants apply for internal medicine and surgery, and they have LORs from internal medicine, LORs from surgery. They have a different personal statement, and you can do that. I'm gonna talk about that fully in detail in my second video, the second chapter of this video, which is mainly focused on the program signaling and the LORs, how to apply to programs, where to add the personal statements, and all the other sections of the ERAS application. But for the ERAS CV, you can only have one ERAS CV regardless of how many programs you apply to. So that's something to be mindful about in picking your experiences and everything else on your CV. because all the specialties you're applying to will get the same CV. So just double check all the information, make sure everything is correct here, make sure you didn't miss anything, you didn't miss any experience or publication that matters, because again, once you certify and submit, you can't change it. And as I said, if you need help editing your ERAS application, your personal statement, advice, interview prep, we have multiple packages ready to help you. We have the platinum and gold and silver. They differ mainly in the number of edits, number of hours available. The best one is the platinum because you get unlimited edits of your personal statement, unlimited edits of your ERAS CV. It's a human physician advisor, no AI. You have unlimited access to your advisor on WhatsApp. You have 3 hours of match advising, 4 hours of interview prep. You have 2 hours of brainstorming to discuss your personal statement and ERAS application, separate from the advising and the interview prep hours. And in addition to editing your personal statement and ERAS application, we'll also edit 2 documents for you. One edit of your letter of interest and one edit of one of these followings you would like to choose. In addition to multiple other things included in this package. So if you want to explore the platinum package or any of our other packages, you can schedule a free consultation on our website and talk to our customer support team fully for free, and they will help you navigate the differences between these packages and which one is the ideal fit for you. And going back to the dashboard of your ERAS, so in this video we covered this section here: personal information, biographic information, education experiences, licenses, publications, and specialty questions. In my second video, we will talk about how to upload your letters of recommendation, your personal statement, the transcript, the MSPE, SFMG report, your photo, and how to apply to programs, including the very, very important discussion about program signaling. I will show you how to signal the programs, in addition to how many signals you have and what strategy you should use when picking these very valuable limited signals. And you can watch this video by clicking on the video thumbnail that will show up toward the end of this video on the screen. I hope this video guided you step by step, as I promised, through how to fill the ERAS application. As I said, this is one of my favorite videos of the year because it signals the beginning of the match season. If I missed anything or you have any questions about that, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments below or reach out to us at info@thematchguy.com. If you found any value in this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell sign so you get notified whenever I post future videos on my YouTube channel. I would also appreciate it if you can share this video with your friend who's applying to the match and is going to fill their ERAS application soon. Don't forget to grab the match free resources, the ERAS application template, the personal statement samples, and multiple other samples, in addition to list of residency programs and their characteristics. And you can sign up to that fully for free by clicking on the link I'll leave in the description of this video. You can watch the second part by clicking on the video that will appear on this screen. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and I wish you match at your dream residency program in the US. Peace.